It all began on a rainy evening. The kind of evening where the city lights blurred through the raindrops on the window, and the streets were filled with hurried footsteps of strangers trying to escape the storm. Somewhere in the middle of that restless crowd was a woman, carrying a worn-out umbrella that struggled against the wind, holding tightly onto the tiny hand of a little boy. Her name was Sarah. She was a single mother, not by choice but by circumstances that life had thrown at her. And though she often smiled for her son, her heart carried scars no one could see. Tonight was different. Tonight she had agreed to do something she had avoided for years, go on a blind date. Her best friend had insisted she give it a try, telling her she deserved happiness too. But Sarah knew her situation wasn't like others. She wasn't just a woman looking for love. She was a mother with responsibilities that never left her side. And yet, with her heart pounding and doubt screaming inside her, she dressed as best as she could, wearing the only dress she owned that made her feel a little bit beautiful. Her son, Ethan, just 7 years old, refused to be left at home. She couldn't afford a babysitter, and leaving him alone was out of the question. She tried convincing him, but his big brown eyes filled with worry every time she suggested staying behind. He clung to her, whispering, "Mom, I don't like when you're not here." And so, with hesitation and embarrassment already burning in her chest, she brought Ethan with her. When she walked into the small cafe, her heart nearly stopped. Her blind date, Daniel, was already waiting. He was well-dressed, his posture confident, but his eyes softened when they landed on her. She walked nervously to the table, her son shyly hiding behind her dress. Before sitting down, she blurted out an apology. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to bring him, but I had no choice. I understand if this ruins everything." Daniel looked at her, then at Ethan, and something unexpected happened. Instead of frustration or disappointment, there was kindness in his eyes. He smiled and said, "It doesn't ruin anything. In fact, I'm glad you came exactly as you are." That moment shifted something in Sarah. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen not as a burdened single mother, but as a woman who still had a story worth knowing. The evening unfolded slowly, filled with awkward laughter, gentle conversations, and moments where Ethan's innocent interruptions somehow made everything warmer. Sarah found herself opening up about her struggles. How she worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. How she often skipped meals so her son wouldn't go hungry. How loneliness sometimes pressed so heavily on her chest she thought she might break. Daniel listened, not with pity but with genuine care. He shared his own battles, loss, heartbreak, and the fear of starting over. 2 broken people, finding comfort in the honesty of the other. But life wasn't a fairy tale, and the challenges didn't end at one sweet evening. Sarah struggled with the idea of letting someone into her carefully protected world. What if Daniel judged her later? What if he left like others had? The fear of disappointment clawed at her heart. And yet, little by little, through small acts of kindness, he began to show her that love wasn't about perfection, but about showing up even in the mess. Weeks turned into months, and their bond grew. There were nights when Sarah broke down, overwhelmed by bills, exhaustion, and guilt. Nights when Ethan asked questions about why his father had left and she didn't know what to say. Daniel never tried to replace anyone. Instead, he stood beside them, building trust one moment at a time. He became the kind of presence Sarah had longed for, not to rescue her, but to remind her she didn't have to carry everything alone. The real turning point came one evening when Ethan fell sick. Sarah panicked, fearing she wouldn't have enough money for his medication. She cried, sitting by his bedside, blaming herself for not being enough. Daniel showed up uninvited, bringing medicine, food, and a calm reassurance that melted her fears. He stayed up all night with them, reading stories to Ethan, making Sarah laugh between her tears, and proving through actions what words could never fully capture. By the time morning light poured through the window, Sarah realized something profound. Love wasn't about perfection, nor about pretending to have it all together. Love was about acceptance, about walking into each other's brokenness and choosing to stay. Months later, Sarah looked back on that rainy evening when she had apologized for bringing her son to a blind date. She smiled at the memory because now she knew it wasn't a mistake. It was fate. That little boy wasn't a burden. He was the bridge that brought 2 hearts together. The story didn't end in a grand wedding or an overnight happily ever after. It was slower, more beautiful than that. It was in the daily acts of love, the laughter during late-night dinners, the teamwork of building a future, and the courage of two people who refuse to give up on hope. And for those watching and listening, Sarah's journey carried a message deeper than romance. It was a reminder that even in the mess of life, even in the broken chapters, love can find you. Not when everything is perfect, but when you dare to show up as you truly are. And sometimes, the very thing you think might ruin your chances, like walking into a blind date with your little boy, might just be the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of your life. By the end of the story, your viewers will feel inspired, emotional, and hopeful, the perfect impact for a 60-plus minute video. Would you like me to expand this draft with more emotional detail and subplots, like Sarah's backstory, her struggles at work, Ethan's school challenges, or Daniel's own hidden pain, so it can naturally fill over an hour of narration time?